natira banacha
Yamuna Tira Vanachari
natira banachari
Tayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jayom Vishwapada Paramahamsa Pariprajakacharya Stottara Sarasemadas Divine Grace Abhaya Charanaravindha Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Gandhara Srimad-Bhagavatam Ki Srimati Tulasi Maharani Ki Samaveda Bhakta Vanda Ki Nitai Gaura Premanande Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naranjaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtapraye Swabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishiki. Reading from Canto 3, Chapter 24, Text 32. The matter of renunciation of Kardama Muni. Tvam Surbihi Tattva Bubhutsaya Adha Tvan Suribis Tattva Bubhutsayadha Tvam Suribis Tattva Bubhutsayadha Sada Abhivada Arhana Pada Pitham Sada Bhivadharsh Hanapada Pitham Sada Bhivadhar Hanapada Pitham Aishwarya Vairagya Yashaha Avabodha Aishwarya Vairagya Yashobabodha Aishwarya Vairagya Yashobabodha Vidya Shriya Urtam Aham Prapadye Vidya Shriya Purtam Aham Prapadye Vidya Shriya Purtam Aham Prapadye Tvam suribhistattva bhubhutsayadha Sadha vivadarhana padapitham Aishwarya vairagya yashova bodhai Virya shriya purthamaham prapadye Tvam suribhistattva babhutsayadha Sadha vivadarhana padapitham Aishwarya vairagya yashova bodhai Virya shriya purtamaham prapadye Tvam suribhistattva babhutsayadha Sadha vivadarhana padapitham Aishwarya vairagya yashova bodha Virya shriya purtamaham prapadye Tvam, unto you, Suribhihi, by the great sages, Tattva, the absolute truth, Bhubhutsaya, with a desire to understand, Adha, certainly, Sada, always, Abhivada, of worshipful respects, Arhana, which are worthy, Pada, of your feet, Pitham, to the seat, Aishwarya, opulence, Vairagya, renunciation, Yashaha, fame, Avabodha, knowledge, Vidya, strength, Shriya, with beauty, Purtam, who are full, Aham, I, Prapadye, surrender. Translation purport by His Divine Grace, Abhaya Charana Arvinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation, my dear Lord, your lotus feet are the reservoir that always deserves to receive worshipful homage from all great sages eager to understand the absolute truth. You are full in opulence, renunciation, transcendental fame, knowledge, strength, and beauty. And therefore, I surrender myself unto your lotus feet. Purport. Actually, those who are searching after the absolute truth must take shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and worship Him. In Bhagavad-gita, Lord Krishna advised Arjuna many times to surrender unto him, especially at the end of the 9th chapter, Manmana Bhavamad Bhaktaha. If you want to be perfect, just always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer your obeisances to me. In this way, you will understand me, the personality of Godhead, and ultimately you will come back to me, back to Godhead, back home. Why is it so? The Lord is always full in 6 opulences, as mentioned herein: wealth, renunciation, fame, knowledge, strength, and beauty. The word Purtam means in full. No one can claim that all wealth belongs to him, but Krishna can claim it since he has full wealth. Similarly, he is full in knowledge, renunciation, strength, and beauty. He is full in everything, and no one can surpass him. Another one of Krishna's name is Asamordhva, which means that no one is equal to or greater than him. Translation with repetition. My dear Lord, your lotus feet are the reservoir that always deserves to receive worshipful homage from all great sages, eager to understand the absolute truth. You are full in opulence, renunciation, transcendental fame, knowledge, strength, and beauty, and therefore I surrender myself unto your lotus feet. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurun Militam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Namah Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschada Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Chaitanya Manoਭીષ્ટಂ Savitam Dena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Svapadanikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Cha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhurbhyavacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Mugam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamam Mande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Yat Kripa Tamam Mande Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Rupada Patita Pavanam. So the activities of Kapila Muni. Kapila Muni is born to Kardama after a few sisters, and as Kardama had promised Devahuti, he provides her a son, an extraordinary son. Since he got an extraordinary son, we should understand that all the activities of Kardama Muni is also extraordinary, not within the realm of the material world. Right? We always see him wanting to marry, looking for an appropriate bride, appropriate partner, and then enjoying with the partner. Very unusual lila of for a sage. so-called transcendentalists, you may say. But we had to very clearly know that just like the Lord's activities cannot be understood, explained, or concluded, or commented on, the activities of great devotees and great personalities are also cannot be understood. Great personalities, great devotees, not ordinary devotees. Ordinary devotees always have to be under watch. But transcendental devotees don't have to be under watch because they are transcendental. Their activities are as transcendental and not so well understood, just like the activities of the Supreme Lord as explained in Bhagavatam itself. So since he got this transcendental son who is now going to expound the theory of Sankhya Yoga, or through the philosophy of Sankhya Yoga, the conclusion. One of the beauties of Krishna consciousness is that when clipping the conclusion the same, you can approach it in very, very different ways. People call it different yogas, but finally these are all different ways to understand the same truth. People misunderstand this by saying any path you can take, still you will come to the same truth. No. You have to fix the truth first. Once the truth is fixed, that is Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Once that truth is fixed, you can approach that with little different ways according to people's interest, fortune, opportunities, and what is available to one. Dhruva Maharaj took one way. Narada Muni took another way. Kardama takes another way. So different devotees are on some form of different route, leading toward the same destination. So the material people's understanding that doesn't matter, you can follow anything, still you'll reach the same place. Doesn't go good, as Prabhupada says, you can't buy a ticket to Delhi and get into a train which is going to Kanyakumari. You will go down south, you will not go up. Many activities we take up in this material world will go into material world, into different hellish planet. Urdhvam gachanti sattvasta. If you do sattvic activities, you go to higher planets. If you go do rajasic activities, you remain in the material world, in the material realm, where there is equal amount of sukha and dukkha. And when you do sinful activities, then you go down. Or when you are in tamoguna, you go down to planets which support tamoguna. Illusory happiness in forgetfulness of the Supreme Lord and the Supreme Truth. But Sattva-guna will push you to happiness in knowledge of the Supreme Truth. So there are two ways of enjoying in this material world. One in total ignorance, one in knowledge in the material world. Beyond the material world is a real happiness. So say that you are in the material world, there are two ways to enjoy, and both these enjoyments are illusory. Enjoyment in Sattva-guna is also illusory. Enjoyment in Tamo-guna is also illusory. Hence the Shastras say, why look for enjoyment at all in this material world? It is like going and selecting a jail. Why go to jail at all? So Krishna conscious philosophy is training towards a person not to go to jail. Doesn't matter how nicely the treatment would be there or how bad would it be there. So that is Krishna conscious philosophy. So here he is propounding Sankhya philosophy, which ultimately ends in Bhakti Yoga. You could take Karma Yoga, activities without looking for the results, ultimately increasing one's piety and sukruti and ending up doing activities for Krishna. One can take up Jnana Yoga, inquisitiveness, and finally understand with a little amount of good fortune, understand Krishna as the Supreme Lord. One can do Hatha Yoga, lot of fortune if you have, probably you will end up in also Bhakti Yoga. at least in Paramatma Yoga. So, these processes you can take, and even in Bhakti Yoga, you can take different processes. You could take the position of Hanuman, you can take the position of Arjuna, you can take the position of Yashoda, you can take the position of Akrura, you can take the position of Gopis. So some people say spiritual life fixed, rigid, everything is watertight. No. Spiritual life can cater to different interests, different aptitudes of people. It is not fixed and rigid. That is the beauty of Krishna consciousness. Mayavadi philosophy, it is one. Everything is one. What you're looking for is same. The person who's looking is same. The person whom you're looking for, everything is same. The sense doesn't exist. What exists is only your illusion of looking. Actually, you don't have to look. So this very dangerous philosophy, very monotonous. But Bhakti Yoga is not like that. It has so many different varieties and variegated ways one could do that. Why? Because the Lord is very, 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 very multifarious. His activities, His leelas, His situation, His qualities are many, many, many. It is not one quality. So since the Lord, the Supreme Lord, is having variety in Him, there is variety in approaching Him. There is variety in having a relationship with Him. But one common thing when you approach the Supreme Lord is one gets situated in his original position of Krishna consciousness, which brings him satisfaction, the ultimate satisfaction of the soul. Why is that? Because of the Lord's nature, as explained here. His nature. There should be a reason why we are worshipping somebody. There should be a reason why we approach somebody. Material reasons are always there. But if there is no material reason, why would you approach somebody? And there has to be a non-material reason. And the non-material reason is the reason of the soul. You may say, you're not happy in this world. That is why you went and joined Krishna consciousness. Yes. You are unsuccessful in this world. Yes. Many times people want to corner us by saying that we are running away from duties. So yes, we are running away from useless duties. Or we are running away from duties which does not give the ultimate satisfaction. Or we are running away from illusory duties. So looking for something beyond this material world should be the basis for all of us to come to Krishna consciousness. Of course, after having come to Krishna consciousness, we will take different stand. People are very fortunate, will take the right stand. People not so fortunate will take a different stand. Some people who are more passionate, very difficult. People who are tamasic, very slow. That's a fact. This is not a personal attack on the lump of matter which is covering the soul. The lump of matter happens to be tamasic, rajasic, different shades of sattva. But the soul is beyond all those characteristics of matter or all those varieties. That is why it is said the Lord has no variety. Why? Because everybody wants to associate with the varieties of the material world. And all the varieties they see in the material world, sattva, rajas, tama, all are having its limitations. So they say, no, don't limit the Lord. So the idea of no form, no varieties. But the Lord says, I have another variety, a class of variety which is beyond these three modes. So we are looking for that quality of happiness, that quality of happiness which is beyond material happiness. So it is a fact. So he who is worthy of to be surrendered to, we are going to. And that applies to the Lord and also applies to the pure devotee of the Lord. Just like the Lord is worshipable, as it said here, your lotus feet are the reservoir of all this, that always deserves to receive worshipful homage. The Lord is worthy of that. Since the Lord is worthy of that, one can worship Him. He is the only person one can worship. Because devotees know this truth, they don't worship anybody other than the Supreme Lord. Of course, as per the explanation of Lord Shiva, the Lord and all that is connected with the Lord. So everything that is connected with the Lord, which is spiritual, a devotee does not want to touch matter. That is why a devotee or a Brahmana or a Vaishnava does not surrender to anybody. He will only surrender to one, which is spirit. Devotees surrender to the spiritual aspect. If there is a material aspect, he doesn't want to surrender there because he knows there's no use surrendering. It is not a question of false ego, it's a question of there's no use in surrendering. As much as a businessman will not invest in any business, you may say, he will only invest in a business which gives him the highest return. You cannot say, no, you're partial. You don't want to support me. Why should I support you when your business gives me only 5% and I have another business which gives me 25%? You would be a fool to invest. Similarly, material people may ask respect and surrender, but it is not a question of ego. It's a question of my investment it's a bad investment. I will like to invest in good things where my returns are better. So if I surrender to be a Vaishnava, my return is more. That is why it is called selfishness. People may say, we are very selfish. Yes, we are very selfish. Selfish. The point is, you don't even know what is the self. So you do not know what the self-interest is. But a devotee knows the self-interest. Because he knows the self-interest, he will only go where that interest is taken care of. And our highest self-interest is in surrendering to the Lord. Because only He can give us protection. Only He can satisfy us. Nothing else can satisfy us. We can beat around the bush in this material world, try to knock any kind of door, beat our head against anything. Happiness, happiness, happiness. We don't get that. Happiness includes everything. Satisfaction, shelter, enjoyment, and which is also sustained. That is the beauty of the lotus feet of the Lord. Because the lotus feet of the Lord can provide all these things. Freedom from fear, because these are the qualities of happiness and satisfaction. If one has to say that he is satisfied, then he should be free from fear. He should be happy. A long duration, self-sustained happiness. No anxiety. And feel total satisfaction and sheltered. And that is available only in the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. Hence, there is nothing else other than the lotus feet of the Lord which can be surrendered to. We have nothing else other than that to go to. Just like many examples are given. In the ocean, you will have a ship, and there's a bird flying around, and he has no other shelter other than the ship. Same way, in this Bhava Mahasagar, in this sagar of material world, which can offer nothing but unhappiness and dissatisfaction and anxiety to us, we have no other ship to land other than the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. That is a ship which can help us. And the knowledge about that is only ship. Bhagavatam in fact says, the verse says, Shreyasa. Shreyasa means all the endeavors we do in this material world, different endeavors, different occupation, different activities we take up in this material world. For what? For satisfaction. People may say, no, I'm not doing for satisfaction, I'm doing it as a duty. But duty gives you satisfaction. But among all the endeavors you do in this material world, the real satisfaction is not in these activities. It is only in the activities of the Supreme Lord. And to know about Him and know His greatness and know the science of this Krishna consciousness is the greatest activity. Shreyasa. Shreyasam api sarvesam. Shreyasam api sarvesham. Forget that. Among all the Shreya, among all the occupation, Shreyasa of the Jnana of the Lord is the greatest. Jnana nishreyasam param. Jnana of the Supreme Lord. Why? Sukham tarantya dushparam. Jnananaur vyasanarnavam. Because the knowledge, the endeavor to understand the Lord will make a boat for you. That boat you can sit. Jnananaur vyasanarnavam. Arnava, this ocean of material world. So in this dukkha ocean of material world, if you want to float over the dukkha of this material world, then you need a nauka, you need a boat. And that boat is formed by whom? You yourself create that boat. The knowledge which we acquire in our material endeavors, in the material world, endeavoring for the spiritual understanding, this endeavor of understanding spiritualism creates day by day a boat is being formed. So that when the real flood comes, you can just sit on that boat. When the real waves come, which pushes you up and down, you can sit on this boat, and this boat will take you to the other side. There is no other endeavor, as far as Bhagavatam says, no other endeavor is worth endeavoring for. No other endeavor is worth, because nothing can take us across this material world. So lotus feet of the Lord, and the knowledge to reach the lotus feet of the Lord, these are the only shelters available. And this is concluded by great scientists, sages. Sages are all scientists. Why? Because they are really looking for knowledge. And they are looking for knowledge, absolute knowledge, and which others can follow. That is the meaning of science. Science means not only me, anybody who follows that should get that. It is not a prerogative of one person or two person. It is available to anybody. A man who knows, who does not know, he follows that process, he reaches absolute. Same conclusion he comes to. Hence Krishna consciousness is called as a science. So these are all great scientists, internal scientists, not external scientists. Because they conclude, the material world, everybody wants to go by science. Science which can replicate and prove that what they say is correct. But material replication is not possible in spiritual science. In spiritual science, one has to experience, one has to follow and experience and then conclude. It cannot be externally concluded. It is a very subjective thing. It has to be internally concluded. That is one deficiency, if you want to say. And that is the reason why it is hidden. If it is externally exposed, any Tom, Dick and Harry will come and conclude and be a misfit. So to keep away the misfit, idam guhyatamam sastram. These are all hidden. So when something is hidden, one cannot go by the material laws. Show me God. How to prove it? Prove me now. No. Right. Well, there are so many people who can prove. Proving is not a big thing. Even yakshas and pishashas can do so. Right. Many people say, show me what is the sign of Krishna consciousness. What you can say? The akasha will fall. The roof will break and fall. Or I'll float. Great personalities would come and do that, of course. In South India also, in Ramanuja Sampradaya, there was many instances where externally things are proven also to fill the devotees with more faith or to attract non-devotees. But this is not the usual procedure. Doing magic and attracting, that faith doesn't last long. I saw a magic, I'm attracted, but after some time that attraction will go. That is why there is no point in doing magic. People come and say, Prabhupada, show me magic. So even if great sages can do magic, for what? A devotee does not want to convince somebody by hoodwinking that Krishna is the Supreme Lord. Rather, a devotee would like another person to experience in his life and then conclude Krishna is the Supreme Lord. So in this preaching movement, we have that great challenge. Of course, coming back to the story of South India, and there was this Brahmana, Keshava Prakasha. He was the Mayavadi guru of Ramanujacharya. Because Ramanujacharya was learning Veda and he happened to be under this Yadav Prakasha. So he is a Mayavadi guru, but he was learning the Shastra. And he was a great personality, very powerful Brahmana. So much so that the king said, my daughter is got infected with ghost, captured by the ghost. Who can relieve? Only Yadav Prakasha can do that. So Yadav Prakasha was called. And he took young boy, few boys, Ramanuja also happened to go together to exorcist this ghost out of the body of this small girl. So Brahma Rakshas inside said, I am a Brahma Rakshas, not ordinary Rakshas. Brahma Rakshasas are more difficult Rakshasas. Just like Brahmanas are very difficult to deal with. If the Brahmana suicide, he becomes a Brahma Rakshas and he can create more trouble. I am a Brahma Rakshas. I cannot be exhausted, taken out that way. You can do whatever you want, I will not go. But you see the boy with you, if that boy puts his feet on this girl, I'll go. I cannot exhaust and this boy can remove you from... Yes. What is the proof? You see this great tree, a big branch will fall, crashing. That is a sign that I left this body. Okay? So I told this boy, put your feet. Not that Yadava knew anything about Ramanuja, because he said, oh, boy, go and put your feet. As soon as Ramanuja, small boy Ramanuja, kept his feet on this girl, immediately the branch fell down crashing. And she was free. So magics can be shown, but what is the effect of that? How long will that affect? Not that Keshava Yadav Prakasha became devotee because of that. Of course, he understood the greatness of Ramanuja much, much later. So devotees don't want to even show these magics and capture the faith of people, because that faith will be very shaking faith. Rather, a devotee has to build a faith which is irrevocable, unshakable, strong, foundation on strong footings. So that no matter what kind of earthquake happens, because earthquake happens in this world always. And earthquake in personal life happens every day. So whatever earthquake happens in us, the faith, the building called faith, doesn't shake. And that has to be through experiencing transcendental knowledge or experiencing Krishna. Now you may say, how do we experience Krishna? All of us who are practicing Krishna consciousness do experience Krishna. Different small dosages. Touching Krishna in the chanting, touching Krishna in the kirtans, touching Krishna in the philosophy, the knowledge as given by Srila Prabhupada, touching Krishna through his forms of dham, tulasi, shaligram, deity worship. And that is why we keep continuing it. Otherwise, why are we continuing it? So many things. There are enough things to go. So the faith, it's slowly getting stronger and stronger by these small touchings of Krishna. Through that he realizes, each one of us realize this is a conclusion. So when we swayam come to a conclusion, that faith doesn't change. So there's no point in unnecessarily hoodwinking and making faith. So as a preaching movement, this is something which is very important for us. We cannot unnecessarily bring the attention of the boys and girls and people who, whatever age they are, to come to Krishna. An amount of sugar coating is possible, but then unless we expose the real truth of this material world and convince why they should take another opportunity to try it out, even as a trial, but not at any time telling unnecessary benefits. That is one of the offenses of chanting the holy name, giving unnecessary promises of the benefits of holy name to people who don't have faith. Because they may lose, when they lose faith, they will lose it big time. They will lose in such a way that they can never come back so many lifetimes. That's why Krishna says, don't distract people's faith, whatever they have. So one side Krishna says that, other side Krishna says, those who preach this glories of me will be considered great. So it's like a very tricky issue. We have to use our intelligence in preaching. We cannot blindly preach. So our preaching, if it has to be effective on people, number one has to follow, because purity is a base, is a what is it? Force. So that is the main force. So unless purity is there, so one is purity, another one is intelligent way of presenting Krishna consciousness so that they understand and they are willing to conclude, and after they conclude, then it's stronger. So it takes time. It is not an overnight thing. But Krishna has told us to preach. Prabhupada has told us to preach. The parampara is guiding us towards preaching. So we have to preach. But then, while preaching, one is that, another one is in our achar. We consider ourselves as quite able. Not quite, very able. It depends on how many slokas you can chant. Depends on how many educated class of people we can convince. Even though it is a very fragile conviction, sometimes we convince people. So we attribute it to ourselves. We attribute it to our success. The moment we do that, then we are no better than a karmi who is enjoying the result of his action. Rather, preaching has to be done purely as a sadhana, because we are told to preach. Because that is the process. This is the yuga dharma. Grihe tako, vane tako, sada hari bhule tako. So we are told to do that as part of Sankirtana Yajna, to repeat. So we should only consider ourselves as parrots in parroting what Prabhupada has told. So when we keep that in mind in our preaching program, then preaching becomes an instrument of purification. It's a great instrument of purification because it is what you call, it is like self-affirmation. We are following it, we are reading it, we are telling people, so it is a self-affirmation. So it's a very preaching is a very great tool in affirming things which we are following, and that increases our faith in Krishna because we are hearing always. That is the benefit of preaching. So preaching in that way is a sadhana. So when we do this sadhana, convince people to such a way that they can change their faith with intelligence, with knowledge, with conviction. Then they become devotee of Krishna. And we don't take any credit in that. Because we didn't do anything. What did we do? We just repeated. We didn't infuse some energy from my body to another body and shake him up. There is no energy here. So our energy is only in repeating. Right? For repeating you need energy. So Prabhupada said, be healthy, eat prasadam, have a good life. So you can go and talk. What? Repeat what I said. So in this repeating process, as intelligently as possible, different people have different abilities. Utilizing those different abilities given by karma, acquired nature. You have to give credit to that person. You cannot say, he has good karma, that is why. No, good karma he has because he did something to get good karma. So you have to give the credit to that person. So he has acquired abilities and he is doing it. And what ability oneself has, utilize that ability. And Prabhupada said, nobody can say, I have no ability. We can sit and do simple things to preach also. And all of them are considered absolute by Krishna. Doesn't matter you're loudly shouting and talking or softly speaking or you cannot speak, you're doing something else to support that preaching activity, is also a preacher. Cooks and the pujaris in a temple, they rarely get opportunities to go out and preach. But they are supporting the preaching movement, and that's preaching. A person sitting and telling about a temple to somebody is preaching. A person who is building a temple is preaching. So a deity worshipper, a cook, a constructor, a person running around and collecting money, and whoever is going around directly preaching about Krishna, all of them are doing preaching activities, because Sankirtana movement is a preaching movement. Prabhupada did not make an ashram for Vishram. Prabhupada made an ashram for preaching. Prabhupada made an ashram for active people. And you may say, okay, when I'm 90 years old also, you'll tell me take a bag and go and preach. No. Then sitting here and chanting itself is preaching at that stage. If you do the things properly in our younger days. He's always active internally. Now we cannot be internally active. Internally we'll sleep. Now we need to be externally happy. We have to be externally active. When we are externally active, now, tomorrow, we can be internally active. Which is the verse in Gita? Arurudasya, what is that? Shamakkaranamuchyate. Yoga arudasya tasyeva shamakkaranamuchyate. In the beginning of yoga, active yoga is the way of realization. But at the stage of yoga aruda, at the stage of mature yoga stage, shamakkarana, inactivity becomes the cause. What is the meaning of that? Right? So our mind has to be active. Intelligence has to be active in Krishna consciousness. That doesn't happen in the beginning stage. It has to start from the gross senses onwards. So when the gross senses are active in the beginning, hands and legs and mind and intelligence and our mouth and tongue, everything is used in Krishna consciousness, only talking of Krishna, doing for Krishna. Purification slowly goes internally, purifying our mind and our intelligence. And then we will know what is the meaning of being active internally in Krishna consciousness. And there's no difference in that and going out and working for Krishna. Bhaktisiddhanta wanted to show this difference, because he was always a preacher, at least at the final stage of his following his instruction of his two gurus. He was a preacher, effective preacher. So people used to say, you're doing all the things that your guru is not doing. Mentioning about Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. So he used to say, what I have got from him is totally different. And what he is doing there is what is keeping this wheel running. So people do not know the difference between that inactivity and this too much activity. So what is physical activity and what is physical inactivity, we do not know. And sometimes we criticize, which becomes offense. What is given to us today is to be active externally. And if we are externally active, and how we can be externally active? Prabhupada has coined this big movement of preaching. Otherwise, how will you be active? Dig and dig and dig the soil. How long will you dig? Go out and climb a tree, keep climbing trees. That is the biggest contribution of Srila Prabhupada, who has made Bhagavatam a practical way of living by introducing the program of preaching, different forms of preaching. Direct preaching, book printing preaching, temple building preaching, temple maintaining preaching. All these are angas of preaching. That activity keeps us active. The purpose is only to keep us active so that we internalize this activity of Krishna consciousness. Of course, it's a seva. Whole life he keeps active in preaching, not that one day he stops preaching. But what I mean to say is that our external activities will help us in building up this internally being active. And that is a state like when Prabhupada says, devotee and devotional service and pure devotional service means do and you want to do more. And do more, he wants to do more and more. That is the state of a Krishna conscious person. So the activity is not because of the physical strength. Activity is because of the internal activity. He goes beyond the physical norms, physical principles. But it starts with gross activity. So the sages are purified in this process. So Kardama Muni is a person who is purified in his process of Krishna consciousness and has come to a position where he can father the Supreme Lord, which is not small. So no point we should in any way criticize Kardama Muni for his so-called material activities. We can never understand. And his conclusions are also given in this form of prayers to Kapila Muni. So all the prayers that he chants is absolutely in tune with Krishna conscious philosophy. Bhagavata conclusion. So this is where you realize a person, when he talks or not only talks, internally he has concluded his faith. His faith is totally rooted on the Lord and nobody other than the Lord. But whenever we say Lord and nobody other than the Lord, we should understand everybody who is connected to the Lord also. So there is a process of following, because the Supreme Lord himself does not accept anybody who is coming directly to him. That is a process he has left. So following Lord Krishna means following the devotees who are following. That cannot be challenged. So that following attitude will make us one day follow the Lord. That is why that process is given. Because we need to surrender to a personality who is living and who has lived in this world. So you may say, Prabhupada is not physically available, but there are hundreds of Prabhupada's followers who are physically available. So following them also becomes an important thing. So you follow the followers of Srila Prabhupada, who is a follower of Krishna. That is the Bhagavata process of accepting the Supreme Lord or getting accepted by the Supreme Lord. That cannot be changed. That is the embedded, never changeable foundation of Krishna consciousness. So the advantage is that by following that process, we can also come to the same conclusion, not to come to the same conclusion, but feel the presence of the Lord and feel there is nobody else worthy of surrendering other than the Lord himself. So this is a logical conclusion. He is Bhagavan, being the holder of all the opulences of this world, Shri Aishwarya Yashaha. Opulences, renunciation, fame, knowledge, strength, beauty. He is worthy. He is worthy of surrender, and his followers are worthy of surrender. Then we become happy, situated in Krishna consciousness. So as Krishna says in Gita also, knowledge of the Absolute, he concludes, Jara marana mokshaya mam ashritya yatantiye te brahma tad vidhu krishnam adhyatmam karma chakilam. Intelligent persons who are endeavoring for liberation from old age, death, take refuge in me in devotion service. They are actually Brahman because they entirely know everything about transcendental and fruitive activities. So these are all transcendental scientists. So following them, we try to surrender to the Supreme Lord. As Bhagavatam says, remembrance of the Lord, anusmaran. As even 11th canto says, 12th canto says, by remembering the feet of the Supreme Lord, purification happens. Avismriti Krishna padara vindayo kshineti abadhrani. It dries up all that is impure in the mind. So stop here. Any questions or any comments? Sattvasya Shuddhim. Jnanam cha vairagya viragya yukta. By remembering the lotus feet of the Lord, that which is inauspicious in the heart gets dried up, and jnana and vairagya comes with bhakti. And that bhakti is considered as secure bhakti. Bhakti which is supported by jnana and vairagya. Sattvasya Shuddhim, Paramatma Bhakti. Jnanam cha vairagya viragya yukta. Yes.
You had in the beginning mentioned about Dhruva Maharaj and Kardama Muni and all these personalities taking different routes and ultimately reaching the same destination. In one sense, they all followed the same principle. They might have taken different paths, but the applications may be different, but the principle is common. Yes. If you see Dhruva Maharaj, he strictly followed what his pure devotee spiritual master told him. Same with Narada Muni also. As he got those pure Bhagavatas and he followed whatever they taught him. And if you look at Kardama Muni also, his father Brahma, whatever he instructed him, he faithfully followed. So that way the principle they followed is the same, but they might have taken different ways of this one.
It's like what we eat is rice, dal, sabji, pickle, salt, etc. But somebody wants more salt, somebody wants more kara, somebody wants to mix it this way. So the basic ingredients is the same. So the basic, as you correctly said, yes, the principle doesn't change. But the taste, according to that, like Dhruva Maharaj meditated on the mantra, chanted the mantra given by Narada Muni. So the principle of following a guru, absolute, can't change. Right? Narada Muni following the Bhagavatas, serving them, so service principle doesn't change. So different people who have different taste. Ambarish Maharaj, Grahastha, king, opulent, using everything in Krishna consciousness. So yes, the underlying principle doesn't change. That's the beauty. There's another characteristics of bhakti. You can do many things to get Krishna, but the foundational principles which solidifies the faith is the same. Now since we are discussing that, what are the basic principles? Anybody want to say? What are the basic principles of Krishna consciousness which cannot be changed no matter what? Basic foundational. Excuse me?
Taking shelter of Guru.
Taking shelter of a pure devotee. Yes, that cannot be changed. Then, when you taking shelter, it means following the footsteps, following the instructions, all those things comes. Sometimes people say taking shelter means hang a photograph. That is also taking shelter. But that's not enough. Everywhere there's only Prabhupada, but inside no Prabhupada. Or in my following there's no Prabhupada. That doesn't help. So, following instruction and surrendering. Yes, that cannot be changed. Then, just see. Let's see how many principles are there which cannot be changed. That's a similar thing, but we can define it differently. Serving other devotees. Surrendering and serving Guru principle. Along with that, there is another principle of Vaishnava, sadhu. So following and serving and associating with sadhus. That is another principle which cannot be changed. Yes? Then, chanting the name, or in one sense following the Yuga Dharma. Whatever the Yuga Dharma is. Kali Yuga, the Yuga Dharma is chanting the holy name of the Lord. Well, of course, Dhruva Maharaj also chanted the name of the Lord. Right? So this is inclusive. Navaveda Bhakti. Bhagavatam talks about Navaveda Bhakti. So one has to follow that. That cannot be given up. Then, whichever that sadhana is there, yeah, okay, we can include that. There has to be a strict sadhana. Yes. It's not like once in a week or once in a while or when I like. No, it's a sadhana. Sadhana means if I like or I don't like, it's like a timetable I follow. Yes, so it's a sadhana. Practice. Yes, that is also cannot be changed. Yeah, these are 4. More all there you can. Also, learning the science. The science of Krishna consciousness has to be learned. This is a process. But the science of Krishna consciousness, learning, conclusion, which of course learning from Guru, learning from sadhus. So there's a learning process also. There has to be a awareness of Shastra. Cannot be, your conclusion cannot be, or our process cannot be asastric. Like Krishna says, Shastra aviruddha. One cannot do things against Shastra. The following Shastra. Yeah, you got 5 at least. So these are all important angas which cannot be given up. Yeah, your taste in Krishna, the way you approach, the way you think, you want to give more importance to Sankirtan, you want to give more importance to this activity, that activity, that's okay. The basic principle cannot be changed. Okay, Prabhupada gives different processes. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So Krishna gives different activities to perform and taste. Somebody's taste will be this, somebody's taste will be that. That is accepted without shaking the basic foundation. So one important point conclusion which comes here is, we all staying in Prabhupada's Gurukul. Are in Gurukul or not? Yeah, Prabhupada's Gurukul. So when we are staying in Prabhupada's Gurukul, these are the principles which we have to follow. We don't get adhikara to stay in Prabhupada's Gurukul unless we follow these. At least now we got 5 things. We have to accept Prabhupada and surrender our life to him day and night. We have to accept followers of Prabhupada, follow the instruction and associate with them and do Krishna consciousness. We have to have the sadhana and participate in the sadhana. Then chanting the holy name of the Lord, which is definitely prescribed, so there's no doubt about that. And then learning the Krishna conscious science, Shastra Patana. We cannot be free from these definitely 5 things, maybe there'll be more. At least these 5 things. So when you are part of this institution, everybody has to endeavor to better these 5 things. That is a compulsory thing. One should not take it lightly. Otherwise it is a burden. Or it is utilizing Prabhupada. And when you utilize Prabhupada, what happens? As it is, we are indebted. As it is, we are taking a big loan from Prabhupada. We return the loan by the activities of what he wants us to do. That's the way to repay. Rishi Rinam, Pitra Rina, all these are rinas, all these are loans. Nobody can escape from that. You follow, you don't follow, you are inside, you are outside. We are all pressurized by this rina, and our next life will depend upon how much of the rina we have paid. So the rina of the Guru can only be paid back by following his manobhishtam, what he wanted us to follow. Shastra rina is also there. Rishi rinas are there, who are expounded the Shastras. So by learning the Shastras, we are repaying that rina. So this way there are so many rinas. It's not a small thing. It all has a very karmic reactions in this world. We have to face that. So we have to participate very much in these activities when we are in the movement of Srila Prabhupada. And that's for our benefit. It's an easy route, tough outside, but it's made it very easy here. So we have to follow. So being a following member is very important. Following the authorities, following the holy name, following the Shastras, cooperating with us, with the God brothers and working. These are all intrinsic principles which we cannot give up being part of the movement. Then we get a better benefit. Stop here. Gandhara Srimad-Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.